Hey guys, tonight we're stepping out of your usual routine and straight into a cloud of steam, warm marble underfoot, and the faint scent of olive oil and old stories. You're headed to an Ottoman, a bathhouse so iconic, so ritualized and so incredibly specific that even your towel gets a ceremonial name. You're going to feel the hot air wrap around you like a blanket you didn't ask for but will soon love. You'll lie back as someone scrapes off your entire outer layer, politely, of course, all while overhearing three strangers argue about pomegranate prices. Welcome to the oddly cozy world of Ottoman bathhouse etiquette. Spoiler alert, if you're used to solo showers, you probably won't survive this unscathed, or at least not scrubbed. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment with your location and local time. I love knowing where and when in the world you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge up a cobbled street past bakeries closing for the night, their warm bread smell still curling out into the dusk. There behind an arched gate and tiled sign the waits. It's not flashy. It doesn't need to be. This is a bathhouse that's seen generations, janissaries and poets, sultans and seamstresses, all filing in like warm laundry waiting to be folded. As you enter, your first move is expected. You take off your shoes. Immediately. Everyone does it. The moment you pass the threshold into the reception hall, shoes become a no-go. Bare feet on tile, a little cool, a little damp. There's a rhythm to it, like a silent handshake between you and the thousands who came before. The reception area is surprisingly grand. Vaulted ceilings, wooden balconies where people leave clothes and sit wrapped in towels sipping tea. A fountain bubbles at the center, just soft enough to soothe you but insistent enough to say, you're not in your house anymore. Someone gestures toward a small changing nook. You nod and wander over. Here, your first challenge, undress with dignity. Ottoman have rules. You don't just get naked and stroll in. Modesty matters up to a point. A linen towel called is handed to you. It's rough, striped, and smells faintly of lavender. You wrap it around your waist or chest, then slip on wooden clogs with mother-of-pearl inlay designed to keep your bare feet off the hot, wet floors. You now clop like a miniature horse. Dignity, hanging by a thread. Historians still argue whether these changing areas doubled as subtle class markers. The larger your stall, the nicer your mirror, the higher your social standing. And if your came embroidered with silk threads, you were probably someone who owned a villa or knew someone who embroidered really fast. But back to you. You step out of your changing room and into the next chamber, the intermediate room, or the warmth hits you first, not hot, just cozy. Like a preheated oven or that moment when your cat finally curls up on your lap. The air smells of steam and around you, others lounge on benches, chatting quietly, sipping apple tea, fanning themselves lazily. This is the buffer zone between the outside world and the inner sanctum of the hot room. You linger here, pretending you're not nervous. A bath attendant appears. He's wrapped in his own towel, arms crossed, with the air of someone who has spent decades judging people's exfoliation needs. He nods. It's your turn. He beckons, and you follow through an arched doorway. And just like that, you've entered the heat is immediate, not blistering but encompassing, like walking into a poem written entirely in fog. The walls drip gently. The marble is pale and veined, glowing faintly under flickering oil lamps. You squint through the haze and see the centerpiece, a massive hexagonal marble slab called the navel stone. This is where you lie down. Yes, here. Flat on your back, towel slightly askew, under a ceiling of tiny dome windows that filter in pinpricks of dusty light. This is where the journey begins in earnest. The is not just about getting clean. It's a social theater, a spiritual reset, and a medical treatment all wrapped in one sweaty package. For centuries, Ottoman citizens, Muslim and Christian, rich and poor, would gather here weekly. Not bathing regularly, unthinkable. You'd be seen as either ill or suspicious. And the bathing itself was serious business. You're not here to splash around. You're here to sweat, soften, and be scraped within an inch of your epidermis. One quirky tidbit: some were strategically placed near mosques, banks, and bakeries, allowing you to pray, wash, cash a check, and pick up bread in a single efficient trip. The Ottoman version of a drive-through spa day. As the sweat begins to bead on your forehead and slide down your temples, the approaches again, holding what looks like a cheese grater disguised as a mitt. Your back is now pressed against the warm marble and it's oddly comforting, like being hugged by a bread oven. The air is thick, misty, and fragrant, tinged with rose, eucalyptus, and something distinctly mineral. Your skin is damp, your senses softened. Then comes the again, still wordless, still wrapped in his stripe like a professional toga, but now he's holding a rough exfoliating mitt made from silk or goat hair. He cracks his knuckles. You try to smile, it doesn't help. You lie still because that's what everyone does, and anyway, your limbs feel like noodles now. The begins. Long practice strokes, up and down your arms, your legs, across your back. It's not painful, but it's not gentle either. Imagine being sandpapered by a monk with a calming presence and a grudge against dead skin. He lifts your arm and exposes parts of you that haven't seen daylight since you were a toddler. It's fine. This is normal. Everyone's being exfoliated within an inch of their dignity. You're among friends, or at least among people who also have skin. Historically, this wasn't just a hygiene thing, it was a health thing. Ottoman doctors believed regular exfoliation helped balance your inner humors, not the funny kind. The ancient Greek kind, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Keep them balanced, and supposedly you wouldn't turn into a phlegmy, angry disaster. You notice little gray curls rising from your skin. No, that's not lint. That's you, or at least the outermost layer of you, rolling up and off like tragic pencil eraser crumbs. The flicks them aside with mild disdain. Now the awkward part. He gestures for you to roll over. You oblige. You're no longer sure where your towel is. Somewhere beneath you, perhaps crushed under the burden of historical accuracy. He starts on your back, pressing harder this time. You hear something pop, hopefully a vertebra and not your pride. He hums slightly as he works, a lullaby for the scrubbed. You're not alone in this ritual. Around the room, other bathers lie on or prop themselves against its edges. A father and son laugh quietly in the corner. Two elderly men argue softly about the price of sheep. You catch snippets. In my day, 5 silver coins. Yes, but those sheep had integrity. One fascinating tidbit. Some had secret codes or colored towels to indicate what kind of service you wanted. A pink, full-body exfoliation and massage. A blue one, just steam and solitude. A yellow one, you probably wanted a quieter or perhaps a refill of tea. Historians still argue whether these towel codes were universal or region-specific. Some claim they were more informal than formalized. Others suggest certain elite had entire manuals explaining etiquette, towel placement, and proper slipper storage. And oh, the slippers. The on your feet are now squelching slightly with every step you take. They're carved wood, often decorated with brass or mother of pearl, and elevated like tiny thrones for your toes. In the wealthiest, could be encrusted with jewels and passed down like heirlooms. You sit up, dazed, freshly molted. The nods and vanishes into the steam like an exfoliating ghost. You feel raw in a good way, like a tomato someone lovingly peeled. A basin nearby gurgles softly. You crawl over and splash warm water over yourself, savoring the tactile bliss of being smooth. No soap yet. That comes next. As you sit back, letting the water rinse away everything that dislodged, your dead skin, your stress, your sense of time, you marvel at how this was considered a normal part of life. In the 16th century, it wasn't unusual for someone to visit every other day. It wasn't indulgent, it was expected. A good bath was like a handshake with society. Skip too many and you might as well disappear. And while you sit here, a thought bubbles up. This is maybe the only place in history where being scrubbed by a stranger felt like a civic duty. The marble beneath you purrs with residual heat. You lean back against the basin, eyes half-lidded. Another bather steps in, a tall man with a gold and a nose that suggests he's judged many olives. He nods at you, not quite smiling. It's a gesture that says, "We are now equally clean, friend." Somewhere far off, another basin clatters, a soft splash, laughter, then silence again. That warm, stretched feeling in your limbs, that's not just relaxation. That's history soaking into your muscles. That's centuries of steam and ritual doing what they've always done, helping people shed not just grime, but the weight of whatever they carried in. And if you think this was intense, just wait until the bubbles arrive. You're still glowing slightly, whether from heat, pride, or having half your skin gently sanded off is anyone's guess. But the journey is far from over. Now comes the frothy, foamy, gloriously sudsy middle act, the soap wash. The reappears like a spa wizard from the mist, this time holding a strange, puffy sack. It looks like a pillowcase soaked in olive oil and ambition. He dips it into a bucket of hot water, then begins to swing it rhythmically through the air. With a practiced twist, he squeezes, and suddenly, a mountain of bubbles erupts forth, landing on you with a muffled "Congratulations, you are now underneath what feels like a living soap cloud." The Ottoman love for foam was legendary. Not just any lather would do, it had to be luxurious, creamy, and pure. Soap was made from the finest olive oil, sometimes blended with bay leaves, lavender, or rose essence. This wasn't hygiene. This was aromatherapy with bragging rights. The spreads the foam over your limbs with a sort of sleepy choreography, as if painting a marble statue that keeps wiggling. You feel the lather slink between your fingers, pool in the dip of your collarbone, and slide down your calves. If exfoliation was the serious uncle of rituals, foam is the playful cousin who brings dessert. And here's a fringe detail. Elite bathhouses sometimes scented their suds with ambergris, a waxy substance from whales that smells oddly divine. Yes, whales. Scrubbing yourself with floating sea mystery, pure Ottoman luxury. The begins to work the soap into your scalp, gently massaging your temples. The bubbles hiss softly like sleepy applause. You close your eyes, surrendering to the rhythm. He kneads your shoulders, then down your arms in slow spirals. This isn't a massage designed to fix a herniated disc. It's meant to lull you, to remind your muscles that their job isn't just to carry anxiety. There's a certain sleepy benevolence to it all. No urgency. No spa playlists with pan flutes. Just warmth, scent, and the gentle squish of centuries. Historians still argue whether this stage of the bath was spiritual or purely hygienic. Some scholars suggest that the combination of heat, lather, and massage created a trance-like state, what they called bathing meditation. Others roll their eyes and call it rich people getting fancy with their self-care. Either way, the effect is the same. You feel like a dumpling in a dream. Around the room, you hear the soft murmur of bathers chatting. Nothing loud, nothing jarring. Etiquette valued a sort of bath time hush. Even gossip, a favorite pastime, was delivered in tones more suited to lullabies than drama. And speaking of gossip, you catch snippets again, drifting through the air like steam. They say she married him for the figs. His brother's slippers broke during Eid, can you imagine? I heard the sultan's daughter fainted from laughter at the poetry reading. You almost feel included, as if the foam on your chest is now absorbing local news. There's something deeply communal about this space. People of every class used, sometimes together, sometimes separately depending on the day or district. For women especially, bathhouses were among the only places where they could socialize freely, laugh, sing, play music, or just rest away from male relatives and prying eyes. And while this might be just another self-care Sunday for you in Ottoman times, a well-timed visit could mark a birthday, a wedding, a childbirth, or even the signing of a peace treaty. Cleanliness may have been next to godliness, but foam was practically divine. Back to you. The soap is now being gently rinsed away with ladles of warm water poured from above. It's oddly ceremonial, like being christened by olive-scented rain. You sit up slowly, your skin slick and slippery, you're hanging on for dear life. Another moves past you, balancing 3 buckets like a circus act. You watch as he performs the same lathering ritual on an older man with a gray beard and a face like carved sandstone. They barely speak, just nods and gentle gestures. The soap is gone now, but its memory clings to your skin like perfume. You feel lighter, almost transparent. Like if someone sneezed too hard nearby, you might just float into the rafters. There's a bench nearby. You shuffle over to it, watching rivulets of water snake down your arms. You sit, you breathe. Your stomach growls a little, classic post-bath hunger. Fun fact, some sold snacks. Or better yet, they were built next to bakeries, so you could walk out, steam rising from your head like a gentle volcano, and immediately stuff your face with warm bread. Urban planning, Ottoman edition. But for now, you remain seated, quiet, half-soaked, wholly dazed. The offer's a smile, a real one this time. Your transformation from dry civilian to damp, blissed-out cloud person is almost complete. Still to come. Just a little stretching, some joint popping, and maybe a back slap that doubles as a chiropractic adjustment. Don't worry, we'll ease into that too. So here you are, slick with steam, positively glowing, and about 1 towel shift away from becoming an honorary member of the marble itself. You've been scrubbed, sudsed, and gently ladled like a prized tomato at a very respectful farmer's market. But don't drift off just yet. Now it's time for one of this most unexpected chapters, the massage. Not just any massage. This one's old school. That doesn't ask you to pick from a list of scented oils. There's no whale music playing in the background. There's just you, and the distinct possibility that your joints are about to discover new directions. He begins with your shoulders. Firm hands, strong but practiced, move in deliberate circular motions. You inhale expecting bliss, and it is, mostly. The way a deep tissue massage is mostly bliss, except for those few seconds when your soul temporarily detaches from your body just to file a complaint. The needs your arms next, working into muscles you forgot you had. You grunt softly. He nods. This is part of it. The occasional protest noise is a badge of honor in the... Then comes the stretching. He lifts one arm and folds it behind your back like a pretzel being shaped for baking. You resist the urge to make a dad joke about never having bent that way before. Probably best to conserve your oxygen. Now the back. He presses a knuckle into a muscle not just under your shoulder blade, and something releases, tension maybe, or repressed thoughts from 3 Tuesdays ago. This isn't spa luxury, it's functional intimacy. He isn't here to pamper you. He's here to fix you, gently maybe, but with the same attitude one might have when unclogging a very polite drain. And if you think it ends there, brace yourself. Belly slaps. Yes, gentle smacks across the midsection. They're rhythmic, harmless, and slightly ridiculous, but they've been part of the tradition for centuries. Some say they stimulate digestion. Others say it's just for fun. Historians still argue whether it was medically motivated or just an oddly cheerful tradition that no one ever questioned. That gives your stomach a few cheerful pats. You nearly giggle, it's fine. Everyone giggles the first time. You hear a man across the room give a satisfied groan, followed by what might have been a burp. His chuckles are democratic spaces. Your dignity may be steamed off, but your humanness is honored. Fun fringe detail. Some 17th century employed musicians to play soft instruments during massages, flutes, stringed instruments, or even subtle percussion. The idea was to lull the nervous system with both touch and sound, a full sensory nap you never saw coming. But even without music, the massage has rhythm. The way his fingers press between each rib, the sweeping motion across your thighs, even the careful pressure he applies just above the base of your spine. You're beginning to understand how someone could get used to this. Another angle to consider: the trust involved. You're barely clothed, borderline unconscious from heat, and now being manipulated like clay by a stranger who seems to know your back better than your childhood doctor. And yet you feel safe, grounded, a little silly, sure, but in a good way. The now moves to your legs. One knee bent, then pushed gently toward your chest. A stretch, a twist, a small pop, you blink. Was that your hip? Was that supposed to happen? He pats your leg gently. Apparently, yes, that was very much supposed to happen. In Ottoman times, these massages weren't optional frills. They were baked into the process like crust on it. Clean skin was only part of the goal. Relaxed muscles, good circulation, and spiritual realignment were just as important. Some goers believed the massage released trapped energy, or even melancholy. It was about undoing the wear of the week, like erasing creases from a very anxious. Of course, not everyone was thrilled about this part. Travel accounts from European visitors sometimes describe massages as bordering on acrobatics. One confused Frenchman in 1764 likened the experience to being folded like a carpet and beaten with tender affection. You, however, are mostly enjoying yourself, a bit confused, a little bent, but definitely relaxed. As the massage winds down, that gives your feet a final rub, a soft slap to your heel, and without a word disappears again. You're alone once more, curled like a noodle, blinking at the ceiling. The light filtering through the small dome windows has changed, more golden now, less sharp. Time has passed. You've been steamed, scrubbed, foamed, and folded. Your limbs hum like well-tuned strings. You ease yourself upright and splash your face with cool water. It shocks you awake just enough to remember. Oh, right. You're still in a public bathhouse. You glance around. The room has emptied a bit. Two older women chuckle near a basin. A boy helps his father pour water down his back. Everyone seems softer, not just from soap, but from something deeper. The weight of daily life has been rinsed off for a little while. There's no hurry. You sit a bit longer, elbows on knees, letting your breath match the sound of the dripping taps. And while the massage may be over, the bathhouse magic is still thick in the air, like steam that doesn't need heat to rise. You're lying there like an overcooked dumpling, limbs slack, mind half floating. But just as you start wondering if anyone will notice if you nap directly on the marble slab, the scent changes again. Not pungent or perfumed this time. It's herbal, clean, and oddly soothing. That's your next clue. You've entered the olive oil soap phase. Now you've already been exfoliated and lathered, but this is the scent stage. Olive oil soap isn't just about being clean. It's about wrapping yourself in a smell that whispers you have achieved peak softness. A new approaches, holding a small bowl and what looks like a loofah made from a vegetable that was told it would never amount to much. He dips it in warm water, mixes it with a greenish bar of pure olive oil soap, and begins applying it in slow, circular movements. The lather doesn't erupt into dramatic foam this time. It's creamy, silky, quieter. The smell is earthy, mildly grassy, and oddly enough, makes you crave salad. Ottomans didn't just love olive oil for its utility. They revered it. It was food, fuel, medicine, and right here, a tool of gentle transformation. Soap making was an art form. Some even partnered with local artisans to produce exclusive soap blends with secret family recipes. A well-balanced bar could make you smell like a polite orchard for days. Fun historical tidbit. Travelers in the 16th and 17th centuries often wrote about soap as a gift item. Visiting diplomats would take bars of the stuff home, wrapped in linen, declaring them the cleanest perfume of the East. Olive oil soap wasn't just practical. It was diplomatic soft power. You feel the soap being rubbed into your chest, arms, and neck. It slides easily over skin now scrubbed to the consistency of satin. The hums under his breath, not quite a song, but not aimless either. Maybe it's a rhythm passed down from the person who trained him. Soap in the had its own etiquette, by the way. You didn't just go grabbing someone else's bar or bucket. There were subtle gestures, shared looks, a silent choreography of when to pass, when to pour, and when to just sit there, foamy and respectful. Historians still argue whether etiquette was or learned informally. Some claim there were written rules posted near the entrance. Others say it was oral tradition, taught from older bathers to newcomers, like being shown how to stir tea the right way. You lean back against a basin and your begins to rinse you. This time, he doesn't use the heavy wooden bucket. Instead, he dips a copper ladle into warm water and pours it slowly, deliberately, over your shoulders, your back, your face. Each rinse feels like a period at the end of a long, luxurious sentence. The basin itself is carved stone, smooth and slightly pitted from centuries of use. Water gurgles up through a spout shaped like a lion's head. It's not roaring, it's purring. This moment right here, it's where time starts to dissolve. You have no idea how long you've been inside. Minutes, hours, a full moon cycle. You wouldn't be surprised if someone told you it's now 1837 and you've just missed your ox cart back home. You run your hands over your arms, marveling at the way your skin feels. Not just clean, renewed. Like you could audition to be a peeled grape in a still life painting. To your left, two women are chatting over a shared basin. They laugh, covering their mouths, and you catch a few words. Something about a wedding, a lost slipper, and possibly a goat that refused to be milked. One of them catches your eye and smiles. Just a brief flicker of acknowledgement, the universal bathhouse expression for yep, you made it through the scrub phase. This is part of the culture too, these quiet social threads. There wasn't just a cleansing place. It was a networking hub, a therapy session, and sometimes an information center. It was where you learned who got engaged, who got promoted, and who dramatically stormed out of the market over the price of figs. And yet, even with the whispers and laughter, there's a calmness here. Conversations are soft, voices low, as if everyone knows this place is sacred in a deeply soapy way. You begin to notice details. The domed ceiling above you, peppered with small glass windows like stars. The way the walls sweat quietly. The faint echo of a ladle dropped 2 rooms over. It all feels distant and close at once. You've entered the trance. Not a myth, not an exaggeration, it's real. Your breath is slower now. Your heartbeat has synced with the rhythm of dripping water and the soft splash of someone rinsing their ankles. Your body hums with quiet gratitude. And if you're wondering whether there's more, yes, there's always more. Because next comes the part where the stops being about you and starts being about everyone else. That's right, it's time to eavesdrop politely. Because bathhouse gossip, that's where things get really cozy. Still half-soaped and glowing like a freshly buttered samosa, you lean back against the basin, content, warm and loose-limbed. But as the rinse water dries and the lull settles in, your ears tune into something else entirely. The gentle murmur of voices just out of sight. Welcome to the gossip chamber. Yes, technically you're still in the same room, surrounded by mist, marble, and sleepy fellow bathers. But functionally, you've now entered the Ottoman bathhouse's most important, the information exchange. It's not labeled on any blueprint. No official corner with a sign that reads "Spill your secrets here." And yet, there has always been the perfect place to talk. Why? Because in the bathhouse, everyone's relaxed. No armor, no uniforms, no rigid social scripts, just towels, suds, and the disarming honesty of shared steam. To your left, 2 men lean close together over a basin. They're not whispering exactly, but they're certainly not shouting either. You can't help but pick up pieces. He only paid half the dowry, and then claimed the mule was lame. Well, of course the fig harvest was bad. He planted too early again. It's mesmerizing. Ottoman were not just places to scrub behind your ears. They were where business deals were hinted at, marriages quietly arranged or rescinded, neighbors judged, alliances forged, and, on occasion, small rebellions quietly floated like trial balloons. One quirky tidbit: some enterprising merchants used as proto-marketing spaces. They mentioned their latest textiles or spices while rinsing their elbows, hoping the subtle flex would ripple outward. Oh, these towels. Yes, hand-woven by my cousin in Bursa, very exclusive. And it worked. In a society that prized face-to-face interaction, the bathhouse was a soft power marketplace. Historians still debate how much influence chatter had on political or social outcomes. Was it just idle gossip, or did it subtly shape public opinion? One camp insists it was a pressure valve, allowing frustrations to steam out without erupting. Another believes that there was the birthplace of more than one court intrigue, disguised beneath bubbles and bashful glances. Back to you. You shift slightly, catching sight of a group across the room. 3 older women sit on a stone bench, towels expertly arranged, each with a small tray of sweets, probably or sugared almonds. Their conversation drifts toward you. He says he loves her, but he hasn't brought her rose oil in months. She always arrives with that ridiculous golden, as if we don't notice. It's not cruel, it's practiced, like they've been sharing this same story in different versions for years. You can't help but smile. And here's the part no one tells you. The acoustics are perfect for gossip. The domed ceilings bounce sound in strange ways. You hear things you weren't meant to. A story told across the room comes to you like a secret whispered in your ear. You close your eyes, not to sleep, yet but to soak in the rhythm. The cadence of Ottoman Turkish, the rolling laughter, the clink of copper bowls. It's like being cradled in a lullaby written in steam. Oh, and about the rules. Yes, there were unspoken codes. You didn't eavesdrop too obviously. You didn't interrupt someone else's tale unless invited. And if someone dropped a juicy detail, say, about a local official's mysterious rash, you didn't repeat it outside unless, of course, it was really, really interesting. Your return's not to scrub or massage, but to offer you a cup of tea. Sweet, strong, and slightly floral. You sip it slowly. The warmth runs through you like a second round of steam. A man next to you strikes up conversation, casual and quiet. You from the north. You nod, unsure what north means in this case. He continues. My cousin's a wool dyer. You look like you wear wool. You blink. Is this a compliment, a veiled judgment, or just small talk? You respond with something neutral. Only in winter. He nods, satisfied. Good. Summer wool is the devil's weave. You're learning. This interaction, small, strange, entirely unimportant, is exactly what makes the feel human. You're not just a clean person now. You're a participant, a warm-blooded, gossip-adjacent cog in the old social machine. And while all of this sounds mellow, don't be fooled. Gossip occasionally turned very real. Disputes started here. Secret deals were brokered. A misplaced towel or poorly timed joke could spark feuds that lasted for months. One fringe report from 1723 tells of 2 merchants who argued over olive oil pricing while soaking, then refused to bathe in the same room ever again. They built schedules around each other's appointments. For years. You finish your tea. The cup clinks gently as you set it on the marble. You stretch, limbs fluid, mind soothed. The chatter continues around you, ebbing and flowing like the water itself. And as you close your eyes again, something beautiful happens. You stop trying to follow the stories. They wash over you instead. You're not here to collect information. You're here to exist within it, to breathe the same air, to feel part of a rhythm that's older than anyone you know. And just when you think this might be the coziest part of the, well, wait until you see what a royal bath looked like. If you've been impressed by marble slabs, scented soaps, and the gentle politics of towel folding, prepare yourself, because now we're slipping behind the golden curtain. You're about to enter the realm of the royal. No, you're not technically royalty, and no, they wouldn't have let you in back then. But tonight, for the sake of sleep and historical immersion, let's say you're a well-liked scribe with suspiciously clean handwriting and a friend in the palace laundry department. That's your golden ticket. You pad softly across the warm floors, led by a silent attendant who has embroidered edges, always a sign of someone who knows where the velvet ropes are. The difference is immediate. Regular are beautiful, elegant in a community-hardened way, but the palace, it's a work of devotion. The walls are tiled in cobalt blue and flaming tulip red, intricate patterns that seem to shimmer through the steam. The domed ceiling sparkles, not metaphorically, but literally. Each little glass star embedded above you catches the oil lamp light and scatters it like soft moonlight. Even the basins have a quiet grandeur, polished brass shaped like lion heads or peacocks, with water that flows not from crude taps but delicate spouts that whisper. And yes, some were gilded. You sit on a warm bench, pretending you belong. The air here smells faintly of jasmine and money. The sultans weren't just bathing in these rooms, they were asserting cosmic balance. Clean body, clean soul, clean empire. And they didn't come alone. The royal was a performance. Musicians played stringed instruments. Poets recited verse from the next room, and attendants, dozens of them, worked in rhythm like a choreographed spa ballet. Sultans sometimes bathed with favored courtiers, not in a scandalous way necessarily, but in the spirit of building trust. Nothing quite levels the playing field like mutual pruning. Even political negotiations could occur here. Imagine entering a meeting in a silk towel and leaving with a new border treaty. One famous example, Sultan the Magnificent was known to visit the after intense council meetings, not just to relax, but to reset, to emerge from steam with clarity and, according to rumor, a much calmer voice when making very important decisions. The women of the palace had their own too, equally splendid, possibly even more luxurious. The harem wasn't just about physical cleansing. It was a stage. Young women in training, concubines, consorts, even the sultan, queen mother, they all bathed here. Not always together, but often under the same marble roof. Attendants would bring scented oils, rare soaps, and desserts like candied rose petals. Yes, you could snack while you soaked. The ultimate flex. There was also where the harem's complex social ladder was climbed or kicked. A chance compliment, a veiled insult, a slightly colder rinse than expected, all subtle signals in the game of favor. And of course, this was where beauty rituals reached their peak. Henna for hands and hair, kohl eyeliner that could withstand steam, and spritzes so potent they lingered for days. Fun fringe detail. Some palace had secret tunnels connecting them to royal quarters. No scandal here, just the importance of modesty and discretion. Moving from private chambers to without being seen, a sign of refined status. Back to you. You're reclining now, having been handed yet another towel, thicker, softer, clearly woven by someone who's never known hardship. A young page offers you slices of quince dusted with sugar. You pretend this is normal. A musician begins plucking a long-necked lute with a sound that vibrates right through your chest. It's not a concert, it's carefully measured lull. There's a saying from the 18th century, a sultan's peace is steamed into him. It sounds silly until you sit here, surrounded by gold-threaded cushions and the quiet trickle of water that seems to hum in iambic pentameter. Historians still argue whether royal were used daily or reserved for big events. Some records suggest weekly visits. Others insist it depended on the sultan's temperament, and whether the viziers were being especially annoying. What's not debated is the artistry. Architects like the Michelangelo of the Ottoman world designed not just as buildings but as experiences. The way heat moved, how the sound echoed the curve of the domes, it was engineered tranquility. One document from 1583 describes a design for a princess, with floors made of heated alabaster and a ceiling that dripped during festival days. If you're wondering whether this sounds made up, same. Historians suspect some poetic exaggeration, but even the toned-down truth is lavish. You sip a second cup of tea. This one tastes faintly of clove and honey. The cup is porcelain, painted with gold crescent moons. You don't ask if you're allowed to keep it. A woman next to you reclines on a cushion, one arm draped elegantly over a bronze tray of pomegranate seeds. She glances your way, raises a brow, and returns to humming softly. You are nobody here, and yet for tonight you're everyone. The royal isn't just about being clean. It's about being seen, without clothes, without pretense, with just enough steam to blur the sharp edges of identity. And when you leave, you're still glowing, but now there's a bit of gold behind the glow. You stretch once more, the marble sighs beneath you. And then someone nearby mutters, "Well, wait until the women take over." You turn your head, ah yes. Tomorrow, or maybe later tonight, depending on your imagination, it'll be Ladies' Day at the... And that is a whole other universe of cozy rituals. You've had your royal moment, sipped your clove-sweet tea, lolled among cushions like a sultan with zero paperwork. But tonight isn't just about palaces and peacocks. It's time to hand over the marble to the real masters of the universe, the women. You don't get escorted out, exactly. You're just gently encouraged to shuffle yourself back to the men's side with a knowing look and a gesture that says, "This steam now belongs to someone else." And just like that, the transforms. Ladies' Day was never just a practical slot in the weekly schedule. It was a ritual, a social reboot, a carefully choreographed, utterly feminine symphony of steam, soap, and subtle status play. The moment the last towel-wrapped man leaves, the women begin to arrive, not hastily but with quiet intention. Groups of 2 or 3, often mothers and daughters, sisters, or best friends, tied tight in bundles of beauty tools tucked under their arms. The entrance shifts in tone. Laughter becomes sharper, more frequent. The sound of bangles, of anklets chiming against tile. A woman near the entrance adjusts her headscarf one last time before unwrapping it, shaking out hair that falls like a plot twist. What unfolds now is equal parts spa day, family gathering, and theatrical production. See, for women in the Ottoman world, especially those kept largely indoors or restricted in public, there was one of the few spaces where they could truly be. Loud, funny, opinionated, relaxed, unguarded. Here everyone was barefoot, everyone was damp, and everyone was listening. You picture yourself now as a decorative tile on the wall, unobtrusive, respectful, absorbing everything. And what you'd see is beautiful. A young bride, not yet married, is being gently scrubbed by her mother and aunties, laughing, squirming, trying to hide behind her. They tease her about the wedding night. They pretend to be stern about marriage advice but can't stop smiling. On another bench, an older woman with silver-streaked hair is having her hands hennaed by a neighbor who's better at art than she'll admit. The henna smells sharp and earthy, and someone has brought lemon slices to deepen the color. There's no professional hierarchy here, no official on this side. In women's, care is often shared. One woman washes another's hair, someone braids it, someone else brings over a fresh copper bowl with orange blossom water. It's intimate, improvised, and deeply communal. One quirky historical detail. Women sometimes brought musical instruments, small drums or flutes, to pass the time between scrubs. Some even composed bathhouse songs. Light, cheeky verses that poked fun at husbands, mother-in-laws, or the price of lentils. Historians still argue whether this counted as rebellion or just healthy stress relief. Either way, there was one of the few places where a woman's voice could be loud and go unpunished. And yes, sometimes there was drama. Imagine a mother-in-law from the wrong neighborhood showing up uninvited, or a whispered rumor about someone's daughter's delayed engagement. Add steam and elbow proximity, and you've got a slow-boiled soap opera with actual soap. But mostly it was joy. Women washed away not just sweat or dust, but tension, isolation, the invisible residue of having to whisper all day. In here they could joke, sing, cry, even scold someone else's kid if needed. A fringe detail. On special occasions like weddings or births, women hired performers, storytellers, dancers, even bathhouse comedians. These jesters would mimic local characters, retell folk tales, or reenact market disputes, all while ankle-deep in suds. There wasn't just a retreat. It was a microcosm of life, shrunk to fit inside domed walls and through steam. You imagine the colors now. In jewel tones, bowls of dried rose petals, slippers carved with mother-of-pearl, even a plate of tiny pistachio pastries someone's aunt insisted on bringing. A girl near the basin splashes her cousin. Squeals erupt. A friendly warning is called out in mock anger. Someone laughs so hard they nearly drop their soap. And through it all, the sound of water. Pouring from hand to shoulder, from shoulder to tile. Steam rising like stories no one wrote down but everyone remembers. One older woman begins brushing another's hair. Long, silver, heavy, she hums a lullaby. The kind sung at cradles and weddings alike. You don't know the words, but you know the feeling. There's a kind of power here, not loud or royal, but rooted and radiant. This is the power of women who have lived through things, who have held families together, who know how to steep tea and raise eyebrows in the same breath. You sit there quietly, respectfully, still that tile on the wall, and think. If the empire's heartbeat was anywhere, it was here. And just when you think the women's has shown you all its magic, someone brings out the sugar wax. Now that, dear listener, is a story best enjoyed with one eye closed and your legs tightly crossed. You're still playing the role of an attentive tile on the wall, listening, watching, definitely not interfering. Because what happens next is a delicate, time-honored, and occasionally wince-inducing ritual, the sugar wax. Yes, hair removal Ottoman style. Now before you flinch, know this, it wasn't barbaric. It was strategic, scented, surprisingly communal, and above all, methodically practiced with the kind of efficiency that only centuries of collective beauty wisdom can provide. Someone spreads out a low wooden stool, lays down a cotton cloth, and unveils a small brass pot. Inside, a golden, glossy glob of caramelized sugar and lemon, a mixture known as it looks like dessert. It is very much not dessert. Aunties, cousins, and best friends gather in a semicircle, not with solemnity but with energy. There are giggles, encouragement, possibly a chant. This is the wax circle, and if you're in it, you're either about to feel smooth or about to scream, sometimes both. One girl sits down bravely, barring a leg. The woman wielding the sugar glob kneads it gently, warming it in her hand like clay. Then, with the confidence of someone who's done this 1,000 times, she smooths it onto a patch of skin, gives it a moment, and rips it off. There's a gasp, a small shriek, and then laughter. Because in the women's, even pain was part of the ritual. It meant preparation, care, shared experience. You didn't sugar wax in solitude. You did it surrounded by witnesses who could either console you or roast you, depending on their mood and your reaction. Interestingly, the Ottomans didn't treat body hair removal as a vanity project. For many, it was considered a religious and hygienic duty, part of a broader cultural focus on cleanliness. There were even wax days built into some women's pre-wedding rituals. You didn't just get ready, you got really ready. Fringe detail. Some sold pre-mixed sugar wax in little ceramic pots, decorated with floral patterns. The higher the decoration, the fancier the family. Yes, even your wax had a vibe. Historians still debate whether this practice was universal or more prominent among urban elites. Some argue rural communities had simpler, quicker routines. Others point to poetry that romanticizes the smoothness of a lover's skin as proof that waxing had deep cultural roots. Back in the bathhouse, the wax continues its journey. Legs, underarms, the occasional whisper of a more adventurous target area. The reactions vary. Grimaces, stifled yelps, and in one corner, a woman who takes it with the serene stillness of a mountain monk. "Is that it?" she asks. The waxer smiles. "That was one leg." The mountain monk nods. "Carry on." Meanwhile, others are still in the background, rinsing hair, slicing fresh oranges, or gently applying to their cheeks. No one is idle, but nothing is rushed. You glance over at a girl sitting cross-legged, quietly massaging a perfumed oil into her feet. She's maybe 16, but she moves with the practiced grace of someone taught by 3 generations of women before her. This place doesn't just clean, it trains. You imagine her years later, passing these routines on to someone younger, explaining why the sugar has to be just the right temperature, why orange blossom oil soothes the sting, why you always wax in the direction of hair growth, unless you're feeling brave. One group begins singing again. The tune loops in a minor key, gentle and sweet. It's about a girl in love who hides a rose under her pillow and dreams of cinnamon. The sugar waxer keeps rhythm with her palm. Even pain can have a soundtrack. You're lulled now, not by the ripping sound, that part remains sharp, but by the atmosphere. There's something undeniably comforting about this. Women helping women, surrounded by warmth, scent, and song. It's the opposite of rushed beauty standards. Here, grooming is a social act, a gesture of care, an offering. And if you're lucky, you get some warm afterward. That's the real prize. One young woman, freshly waxed and glowing, settles back onto a cushion with a triumphant sigh. Someone fans her gently. Another places a slice of quince in her mouth. Royalty has nothing on this. You can almost feel it yourself now. Skin tingling, slightly pink, but soft as a steamed dumpling. And as the waxing wraps up, the tone shifts again. Now come the oils, the perfumes, the silk slips being pulled from small embroidered bags. The transformation from creature to walking poem begins. But before we oil ourselves up and float into the night, there's one more side to explore. What happens after the bath? Because the doesn't end when you dry off. That's when the afterglow begins. You've survived the sugar wax. You've been scrubbed, steamed, and serenaded. Your skin glows, your limbs hum, and your brain has gone pleasantly sloshy, like a peach in warm syrup. You'd think this is where it ends. But no, because leaving thee is its own ritual, a winding down chapter that's as crucial as all the scrubbing and stretching that came before. This, dear listener, is the afterglow. It begins with the slow return to the dressing room, where your towel is replaced with a dry towel. Oh, the luxury. And someone hands you a small bowl of cool water with mint leaves floating inside. You sip it like nectar, your first taste of outside air. This is your re-entry into the world, carefully managed, softly choreographed. No one rushes, no one shouts. The noise of the street feels like another planet entirely. In Ottoman times, this transition was both physical and symbolic. You didn't just leave, you emerged from it, reborn. And let's talk about those fragrances. As you settle onto a cushion in the antechamber, an attendant approaches with a tray of oils and powders. Rose, jasmine, sandalwood, musk. You choose, or let them choose for you, and they dab a bit behind your ears, on your wrists, maybe even in your hair. The goal? Not to overwhelm, just to leave behind a whisper of wherever you go. These scents had layers of meaning. Rose water, for example, wasn't just floral, it was noble, refined. Jasmine carried romantic connotations. Musk was more sensual. In some households, different oils were reserved for different social occasions. Market days, visits from relatives, dinner with a potential in-law. Your scent could be your subtext. And don't think men were left out of this olfactory finale. On the men's side, barbers often waited in the post-bathroom to trim beards, oil, and even apply a dab of cologne, usually lemon-based and brisk enough to wake the dead. Fringe detail. There were specific perfumes sold by local apothecaries. Some bore names like Evening Garden, Bride's Secret, or mysteriously Winter Apple Whisper. Historians still argue whether these blends were standard or wildly improvised. At least one 18th century recipe includes crushed pearls, because why not? Now fully dressed, though looser, softer clothing is advised, you step outside. And here's the thing no one tells you. The world feels louder after not just in noise, but in texture. The wind on your skin is suddenly scandalous. Your tunic brushes your body like it's flirting. You walk home slowly, as if afraid to wrinkle the feeling. And you're not alone in this. People notice glow. You'd see it in the market, someone with flushed cheeks, soft eyes, and a faint hint of drifting in their wake. That's a fresh bather, they'd say. Probably had the full treatment. Lucky. And it wasn't just about vanity. There was social trust built into it. Being freshly bathed meant you respected yourself and the people around you. In fact, some hosts would delay meals if a guest arrived visibly unwashed. Come back after they'd joke. Not really a joke. It wasn't uncommon for friends to plan post-bath meetups. You go to a nearby tea house, order something small, sit on a cushion, and bask in the stillness you carried with you. Time was a liminal state between labor and leisure, the mundane and the sacred. There are records of poets who claim they wrote their best verses right after a bath, painters who said color made more sense after steam, even cooks who swore the stew tasted better when stirred with freshly softened hands. Was it science, steam-induced brain magic? Or was it just that feeling of having paused life for a while? Historians still argue whether this power came from the physical sensations or the break from routine. But really, why choose? It was both. You continue strolling. There's still warmth in your bones like you swallowed a small sun. Your feet move slower but with purpose. People glance at you, not staring, just noticing. That person has just bathed, their eyes say. That person knows peace. And yet it won't last forever. The sweat will return, the dust, the clatter of daily tasks. But for now, for this window of time, you are suspended in softness. Some bathers described this phase as walking under a spell. Others simply called it the float. It's the space between stories, the breath after the line ends, the part where your body and your spirit agree to stop arguing for once. And the best part, you know you'll come back, not just because your skin needs it, but because your soul remembers what it felt like to be this light. You pass by a stall selling dried figs. The vendor nods at you. Maybe he knows. Maybe he just likes your towel imprint. And as the street swells back to life around you, vendors shouting, pigeons flapping, someone arguing passionately about eggplants, you carry with you a quiet pocket of warmth that no one can take away. That's afterglow, undeniable, unexplainable, utterly yours. You float. There's really no better word for it. You're not walking so much as drifting through the day, freshly bathed, faintly fragrant, and carrying the ineffable weightlessness of someone who just had their every rough edge steamed away. But now, with the glow still humming in your pores, you start to wonder, how did this all become such an institution? Time to look back. It didn't spring up overnight. Its roots run deep, pulling from Roman bathhouses, Byzantine traditions, and pre-Islamic purification customs. When the Ottomans rolled in, empire building at the speed of cannon fire, they didn't just conquer cities. They absorbed infrastructure, then added flair. Roman baths were practical, public, warm, and surprisingly hygienic. The Ottomans took the bones of that system and wrapped it in silk. Where Roman spaces were stern and stone-heavy, Ottoman introduced color, curves, acoustics, and above all, ritual. In Istanbul alone, there were once hundreds of, dotting the city like warm pressure points. Large ones near markets or mosques. Small, neighborhood tucked into back alleys. Some were lavish, others just warm rooms with buckets, but all of them mattered. You're strolling now through an imagined 17th century Ottoman street, cobbled and dusty, narrow and bustling. A boy darts past with a tray of tea balanced perfectly. A woman adjusts her headscarf, holding a basket of dates. And there, under the carved wooden eaves, a dome peeking over tiled rooftops like a resting tortoise. Inside, steam curls through latticed windows. Outside, a carved marble fountain bubbles quietly. A row of slippers lines the threshold like sleepy sentries. You step inside again, not for the bath this time, but for the culture, the legacy, the role this place played in daily life. Because weren't optional, they were woven into the rhythm of the week. Friday was a popular day, aligning with the congregational prayers. Women often had their day after the market or just before a festival so they could emerge radiant. Births were celebrated with special bath ceremonies. Brides had their pre-wedding scrubs. New mothers were pampered to restore strength. Even the deceased were washed on marble slabs with reverence. There was a for every milestone. And for those who couldn't afford the fancier spots, there were simpler neighborhood, just a domed room, a stone slab, and a promise of warmth. Entry fees were adjusted depending on the day. Some offered free entry to the elderly. Others gave discounts during Ramadan. Fun detail: workers often developed local fame. A particularly skilled or masseuse might be known across neighborhoods. Women would travel across the city for a particularly soothing hand. Think of it as Yelp, but powered by anti-gossip. And it wasn't just about physical relief. There was a diplomatic zone, a peacemaker, an informal court. Fights that couldn't be solved at the market were often soothed here. Let's talk after the bath, someone might say, and somehow post-steam arguments were less explosive. Historians still debate just how politically influential were. Some argue they served as subtle sites of rebellion, where women planned protests or men discussed tax grievances. Others believe there was a pressure valve, keeping things stable by letting people blow off steam, quite literally. And what about architecture? Oh, the architecture. Ottoman were symmetrical masterpieces. Hot rooms, warm rooms, cool rooms, marble benches and domed ceilings with star-shaped skylights. The flow of air and heat was as carefully engineered as a palace corridor. You lie back in your memory, gazing up at one such dome. The light streams through those tiny glass stars, casting golden flecks across steam like drifting snowflakes. The room seems to breathe. The great imperial architect built some of the finest, treating them with as much artistry as mosques. His still stands today, over 450 years old, with perfect symmetry and the same gentle acoustics that made whispers feel holy. Back then were often funded by charitable endowments. Wealthy patrons, especially royal women, would commission as a public good. You clean your soul, they earn divine brownie points. Everyone wins. And sometimes, just sometimes, a patron would go overboard. Stories tell of with singing fountains, mirror-paneled walls, even hidden rooms where fortune tellers whispered secrets through steam. Fringe tailies, maybe, but then again. Ottoman cities didn't just function around, they thrived because of them. You pause at the edge of your imagined. The streets feel louder now, more angular. You realize you've walked through time, touched mosaic floors, heard songs rise into domes, and somehow it all feels accessible. Because while empires fall and cities crumble, steam has memory. And it remembers everyone who passed through. You stand at the threshold now, not of a single, but of the empire itself. Behind you, steam still curls around memory. Ahead, A vast, intricate world unfolds. Camel caravans, tiled courtyards, janissary drums beating at dawn. But tonight we're not chasing battles or borders. We're following the quiet, fragrant thread of culture as it unfurls beyond the capital. Because yes, there were in Istanbul grand, golden, dome-topped beauties, but didn't stop there. They followed the empire, drifting across continents like warm breath on cold glass. From North Africa to the Balkans, from Syria to Armenia, the Ottoman bathhouse left its misty fingerprints. You travel now, soft-slippered, towel-clad, into these regional variations. In Bosnia, they are smaller, sometimes nestled beside icy rivers, where the post-bath plunge is not for the faint-hearted. Locals emerge ruddy-cheeked and barely clothed, insisting it builds character. The domes are plainer, the soap laced with mountain herbs. One corner of a Sarajevo even has a brass plaque commemorating a man who claimed it cured his gout and his marriage. Historians remain skeptical on both counts. Further south in Aleppo, the air is scented with laurel oil soap, so dense and earthy it feels like washing with melted forest. The tiles are different here. Geometric, turquoise-heavy, their patterns meant to remind bathers of divine order. They wear different head wraps. The music is slower, but the core feeling, still there, still Ottoman, still home. In Egypt, are sometimes tucked behind markets, almost invisible until you pass the right curtain. A cup of sugarcane juice greets you post-bath. The locals have perfected the art of napping, lying motionless on a warm slab for an hour while someone tells a story in the corner about a thief who once hid in a bath basin for 3 days. Fringe detail. In 18th century Damascus, some were built directly above natural hot springs. They didn't just warm water, they borrowed it, whispering it into marble basins from the earth itself. Poets wrote sonnets to those springs, and one elderly woman insisted her tea only tasted right when brewed with water. No one argued. You pause now at the borderlands, those places where the Ottoman grip loosened but the tradition lingered. In Greece, Albania, Armenia, remain, some converted to museums, others still active, still whispering. One inn has graffiti carved in Ottoman Turkish beside a modern sticker that says, "For a good time, ask." Continuity takes many forms. And what about those who left the empire? Immigrants, refugees, wanderers, many carried the with them. Not physically, of course, but in gestures, rituals, recipes. The way they heated water, the way they folded towels, the way they taught their children to steam before a wedding or scrub before a feast. Historians still argue whether these traditions count as cultural inheritance or just stubborn nostalgia. Either way, the scent of olive oil soap lingers in kitchens half a world away. And for those who stayed, those living in Ottoman cities long after the empire faded, they became something else entirely. A time capsule, a gentle rebellion against modern chaos. In 20th century Istanbul, as skyscrapers sprouted and cars honked through narrow alleys, remained, stone-hearted and unbothered. Locals ducked inside to escape concrete, to remember water, to remind themselves they had skin. Even during wars and blackouts, some stayed open. Candles replaced oil lamps. Buckets were filled by hand. Soap was homemade, but people came. People needed to come. Because weren't just about cleanliness anymore. They were anchors, soft, warm anchors wrapped in linen and lemon oil. You sit now, not in Istanbul, not in Aleppo, not even in Sarajevo, but in a floating memory of them all. A cross-empire dreamscape built of arches and mist. That doesn't exist, but always has. You lie back against a marble bench that's somehow all temperatures at once. Warm, cool, familiar. Voices rise in Turkish, Arabic, Bosnian, Armenian. You understand none of them and all of them. Someone pours water over your feet. Someone hums a lullaby your grandmother never learned but somehow always knew. And you realize that, like lullabies, are a kind of language, not words but rhythm, ritual, repetition. That feeling of yes, this again, I remember. And while empires die, Languages like this tend to survive. Because when a place teaches you how to breathe softer, how to laugh more, how to be scrubbed raw and still feel royal, that's not a bathhouse. That's a cathedral. And whether in tile, story, or scent, it endures. You remain in that mosaic of memory, drifting between centuries and dialects, but eventually you start to notice something else. A question rising quietly beneath all the steam: who kept this going? Who folded the towels, warmed the stones, lit the oil lamps before the sun even stretched? It's time we talk about the unseen hands of the... Because for every relaxed bather sighing onto warm marble, there was someone, often several someones, behind the scenes making it all feel effortlessly sacred. Let's start with These were the male bath attendants on the men's side, part masseuse, part therapist, part lifter of very heavy buckets. Trained from a young age, many of them were apprenticed to masters, learning not just how to scrub backs, but how to read bodies. A good knew when you needed more pressure or less conversation. A great could flip a grown man onto his stomach with one hand and still have time to pour the tea. Their uniforms were minimal, just a waist strap and their tools simple. A coarse mitt called a bar of olive soap, a bowl, and a strong grip. Had reputations. You'd hear, "Don't go to that, there are too chatty," or "That one, best shoulder work in the district. He once fixed my cousin's back so good he married the next day." And yes, there were boundaries. Physical, professional, spiritual. There was sacred space. Who crossed lines could be fired, fined, or worse, gossiped into oblivion. Us reputation depended on trust. Then there were the female bath attendants. Their world was equally rich, but even more layered with social nuance. Didn't just scrub and rinse. They were beauty experts, matchmakers, confidants, keepers of secrets whispered through steam. A respected might be invited to weddings, sought out for skin remedies, or asked to mediate disputes. They knew who was courting whom, who was pregnant before anyone else knew, and how much henna to use for every skin tone. One fringe detail. Some created their own signature scent blends, secret family recipes passed down like heirlooms. Rose, amber, cardamom, clove. If you walked out of the bath smelling like antiques mix, people knew. Historians still debate how much power really had in society. Were they truly influential or just excellent gossip nodes? But if you ask anyone who grew up in a community, the answer is clear. They ran the show. There were also bakers. Yes, bakers, who supplied the warm loaves eaten after long sessions. Soap makers who tailored scents for specific. Copper polishers who made sure the bowls gleamed. Even musicians who specialized in acoustics, composing pieces that bounced perfectly off wet tile. And then there was the unseen furnace room, the belly of the beast. You never saw the fire stokers. You only felt their work, the warm stone under your spine, the perfect swirl of steam in the main dome. That was magic. These men worked in brutal heat, feeding wood into ancient ovens, sweating through cotton shirts as they maintained the fragile balance of temperature. Too little fire, cold, too much, scalded guests. A good had the instincts of a baker and the stamina of a blacksmith. In some cities there was mythologized. Children whispered that jinn lived down there. One in Bursa claimed its fire never went out for 200 years. Another in Damascus said the furnace moaned before earthquakes. Were these stories true? No idea. But the furnaces did sound eerie if you listened long enough. You, of course, don't go near the furnace tonight. You stay in the warmth it provides, sipping tea, enjoying the smooth stone under your feet, maybe humming along with the music from a distant corner. Because even as the bathers sigh and stretch, the real work continues in silence. Bowls are refilled, soap is carved, towels are rotated on sun-warmed racks. A sits down for 5 minutes before her next customer. A pops his shoulder, stretches his back, and begins again. You start to understand that weren't magical because of their marble or even their heat. They were magical because people chose to make them that way, daily, repeatedly, with the kind of care we rarely see in the modern world. A place where strangers became trusted hands, where a well-folded towel meant dignity, where a scrub wasn't just exfoliation, it was an act of renewal. You lie back one more time, letting this knowledge settle. The quiet industry beneath the serenity, the systems inside the softness. And as the steam curls up toward the dome, you whisper a sleepy thank you to every unseen pair of hands that made your glow possible. You're feeling it now, deep in your limbs, in your lungs, in the fuzzed-up warmth behind your eyelids. That full-body ease that says, you are well taken care of. And yet, as you drift deeper into this scented history, another thought trickles in. What did it all mean? Beyond the soap and steam, what did they actually represent? You stretch out again, mentally this time, reaching not for another bucket of water but for meaning. Because the Ottoman wasn't just a bathhouse, it was a reflection of values, of beliefs, of identity. Cleanliness in Islam, after all, is no casual suggestion. It's a pillar. Ritual purity is a prelude to prayer, and while not the only method, was a favored path to physical and spiritual readiness. You didn't just wash your body, you prepared your soul. So we're inherently spiritual places, not quiet like mosques, not studious like madrasas, but still sacred in their own steamy, sudsy way. You felt something shift when you entered. The noise of the world thinned, the heart slowed. The body, usually on high alert, relaxed its grip. This was a pause in a world that rarely allowed them. It's why so many poems and songs of the Ottoman period reference baths, not as luxurious diversions, but as meditative sanctuaries. A line from one 17th century lyric floats through the steam. I lost my sorrow in the bath and found myself in the lather. You smile, that's about right. But there's more. There was also a place where hierarchy softened. Rich or poor, you sat on the same marble. Your fine silks came off. Your servants couldn't fetch for you here. In the heat, everyone sweat. In the rinse, everyone sighed. Yes, there were class differences, private rooms, first-choice towels, but the bath itself didn't care. The water treated everyone the same. Historians still debate how radical this really was. Was it true equality, or just a temporary illusion wrapped in lavender oil? Either way, for a few hours, even the lowliest worker could lean back like a sultan. And then there's the unspoken language of touch. In a world where physical closeness was often regulated or forbidden, they allowed something tender, a space where people touched each other not for dominance or danger or desire, but for care. The strong hands on sore shoulders, the combing tangles from another woman's wet hair, a mother rinsing her daughter's feet, an aunt gently patting onto a niece's flushed cheeks. These were not just gestures, they were messages. You are here, you are safe, you are loved. And we don't get enough of that now, do we? In the modern world still exist, of course, but often behind spa menus, laminated price lists, and clinical lighting. Some are preserved as cultural relics. Others have turned into tourist photo ops. A few hold on fiercely to their roots. But something's changed. We don't bathe together anymore. We've privatized self-care. Showers are quick. Baths are solitary. We clean ourselves, but rarely do we feel cleansed. And so, lying here now in this imagined bathhouse, one foot in the past, the other in a very fluffy towel, you realize what you've been missing. It wasn't the steam. It wasn't the soap. It was the of it all. The ritual, the rhythm, the way whispered, you don't have to carry this alone. And maybe that's what made them so vital, not just as buildings, but as cultural heartbeats. Steady, rhythmic, warm, beating through generations, through empires, through history itself. You let that thought sit with you for a while. You hear water trickle. A lullaby hums from somewhere deep in the tile. Someone refills a copper bowl beside you, not for any reason, just in case. And you think we should bring this back, not just the buildings, but the feeling. The softness, the slowness, the permission to be still and be held. And if not in stone and steam, then at least in spirit. Because maybe the isn't a place, after all. Maybe it's a way. And now here you are, wrapped in the slow glow of all that came before, the tenderness, the steam-softened centuries still curling around your limbs like invisible towels. You're no longer just a guest in a bathhouse. You're part of its story. You sit back now, not on a marble slab, but in the memory of it. The kind that's somehow warmer than real heat. The kind that lingers behind your knees and between your thoughts. This is the final chapter of our soapy journey, the part that happens long after the water stops running. Because us real magic isn't what happens in the bathhouse. It's what walks out with you. You remember the way the attendants folded towels into perfect squares, each one a small ceremony. You recall the scent of rose oil on your collarbone, the way it followed you down the street like a well-behaved ghost. You remember the way your body became not just cleaner, but quieter. And as you return to the rhythm of daily life, the market noise, the creaky floors, the teacup with the chip on the rim, you carry that hush with you, like a secret. In Ottoman times, this hush had a name, not an official one, just something whispered by those who'd bathed well. It means peace, but not just the absence of noise. It's the kind of peace that lives in the folds of a fresh towel, the pause between two verses of an old folk song, the weight of a warm bowl in your hands, the wordless moment between people who care for each other and don't need to say it out loud. Historians still argue whether this concept was central to Ottoman culture or just poetic nostalgia. But you felt it now, you know. You let yourself imagine your own future, maybe not carved from marble, maybe not blessed with mosaics or fountains or whispered poetry. Maybe it's just a room, a small ritual, a warm hand, a slow breath. And maybe, if you're lucky, someone will pour water over your shoulders just right, not because they must, but because they want to. That's wisdom. The understanding that comfort can be sacred. That softness is strength. That your skin deserves song. And so, as the tiles of this bathhouse begin to fade behind your sleepy eyes, and the echoes of laughter and lullabies dissolve into soft hums, you carry the warmth forward. Through time, through space, into your own life. Wherever you go, know that this place is still with you, in steam, in memory, in the tender way you treat yourself even when no one's looking. Let everything slow now. The sounds, the steps, even your breath. You're no longer in a marble room, but your skin remembers it. How the air curled like silk, how each drop of water landed with intention. Let that memory wrap itself around you now, like a warm towel fresh from the fire. You don't need to move. You don't need to do anything. Just allow yourself to be. Your thoughts may drift, let them. Let them roll through domes, over mosaic floors, past bowls of and slices of quince. Let them follow the rhythm of your breath as it deepens, slows, softens. Your jaw relaxes, your hands rest. The weight of the day melts like steam off marble. Even now, the echo of distant water lingers in your ears, a rhythm older than speech, calmer than silence. You're safe. You're warm. You are tended to, even now. Sleep isn't something to chase, it's something to allow. So if you haven't already drifted, you're welcome to do so now. Let the story continue behind your eyelids. Let the live in your dreams. Let yourself go quiet. You've earned this rest. Sweet dreams.